Good evening and welcome to JJ Winn's here in Holiday City. It's the return after a couple of weeks hiatus doing high school girls and boys basketball. The return of Sports Weekly powered by Terry Henricks Ford. And of course, as we said, live here at JJ Winn's and presented in part by AmeriMade Realty, the main stops of Northwest Ohio and the Bryan Parks and Recreation Department. Flipping the script tonight to talk some spring sports. Do want to make mention there are games going on tonight. Division II boys district semis. Wasion's been eliminated by St. Mary's 48-38. Napoleon and Shawnee will be playing here in just a bit. And the girls regional semifinals, Wausion and Ottawa Glandorf are about ready to tip off tonight in Findlay in Division III. Joining me tonight on the show is Hilltop baseball coach Tony Gerig and Montpelier softball coach Andy Robinson. You're like a regular now here since we had you on for football and softball, and just going to fill every spot, right?
Got a face for radio is what I've been told.
Andy, this is the second year as the varsity softball coach at Montpelier. I guess tell us a little bit about what got you steered in that direction to even take the job 2 years ago.
Well, I was always a big baseball guy. Played for Andy Singer over at Fairview and coached for Andy, junior Acme, some Acme in the summers. Always really thought I would get into baseball. Actually kind of thought I was going to help Toby a little bit that first year, and COVID hit. Second year comes around and there was an opening. I talked to Joe a little bit about it, and I thought it was a great opportunity. I saw where the girls were, and I saw there was an opportunity there to try to build a program and get my foot in the door with being a head coach and some of that stuff. So it's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, so baseball, we had you on as the head football coach at Montpelier not long ago. Baseball was, if I'd asked you 5-10 years ago, would it have been baseball that you would have maybe hoped for, or even longer ago than that?
It probably still would have been football.
Okay.
But I always I always loved baseball, and I always, growing up, played it my whole life, and I kind of always thought I would get into baseball, but I know it still would have been football first.
What adjustments, I played baseball like you, and then this was obviously admittedly at the youth level, but coaching softball. So what adjustments did you have to make in the game of baseball to the game of softball and then teaching it?
Well, the first thing, when I first took it over, is the pitching. It's just night and day difference, really. You're going from a completely different arm angle. There's different rules. You're not leading off or anything like that. So really, when I first took it over, I had to tell Lauren Rickenberg, I said, listen, I'm not doing this if you're not going to stay with me and coach my pitchers. So she was a really big part last year because, I would have been lost. And this year I got Brooke Moore to come on as well. So she's helping quite a bit, and I've got a lot. My assistant coaches that I have great minds, and they're softball people, and they've coached girls sports before, so that was a big help to me.
Is it something, I guess, when you always have this perception or thought in your head of how you're going to feel about the job, and then whether it's good, bad, whatever it might be, and then it's a little different. How did your first season go as the head softball coach? How much, obviously, if you're back for year 2, you're enjoying it, so tell us a little bit about that first season.
I had a blast coaching. The girls were great last year. Our numbers, we were down a little bit, so we played a lot of girls that played every varsity game and every JV game. But I had a really good time with it, and I saw the change in what these girls kind of thought about what they're able to do. So we haven't been really bad, in the past, but we haven't really ever gotten to that next level, and trying to convince these girls, you have more talent than you realize here, and seeing the girls kind of turn the page towards the end of the year. We were 8-14 last year. We got beat out by Archibald in the sectional, but we finished second in the BBC, and Hilltop had an incredible year, and so chasing them was going to be tough in its own. But again, just seeing the girls kind of the light switch I think came on, we can be a lot better than what we've been here. So I'm looking forward to doing that this year.
For people that are wondering here, it's March 2nd. Basketball tournaments are still going on. Wrestling postseason is still going on. And they just wrapped up swimming and bowling still going on. So, winter sports are still going on. So people are wondering, when does the season start? How long have you been practicing? Maybe update our listeners on when the quote-unquote spring season started for softball.
Yeah, technically last Monday was our first day. And, unfortunately, some spring coaches are, happy when the season's over. over. Unfortunately, our girls got beat out kind of early in the tournament, but it did allow us to get started on the first day last Monday. So we've been at it about 8 or 9 days now. But I've had, 4 or 5 girls that, didn't play a winter sport that have been, hitting and fielding and pitching and doing all that stuff since December. So we had a really good attendance from about 4 or 5 girls this year. 80-90% of our open cages getting swings in and stuff.
Numbers, we were talking off air. Let our listeners know a little bit where you're at to begin the year.
Yeah, we got 20 girls, which is about 4 to 5 more than what we were last year. It's going to allow us to put a full JV and varsity schedule together, which is huge for our program going forward.
As you come in, a lot to do here in the preseason before you start playing games, but on paper, what do you like about this group?
I like to say we're kind of half and half. I got 5 returning from last year that, earned a letter and got a lot of valuable experience and a ton of gameplay. And then I got about 4 or 5 spots I got to fill with some young freshmen, but our freshmen are very talented. They're very advanced for being freshmen, and there's a few of them that are going to have to step up and play right away. I think we have an opportunity. The league gets better in almost every aspect this year. Everybody was pretty young except for Hilltop last year. Hilltop's still going to be, the one that everybody's chasing. They've won 8 or 9 in a row, whatever it's been. North Central will be a lot better this year as well. But Eden, Pettysville, those teams get better as well. So I see that we'll have an opportunity to compete this year at the top. I think if things are going our way, we start getting these younger girls some experience, there's an opportunity to win the league. We're kind of in the same boat as our girls basketball team, where we're still in D3 by a few girls for probably another year. So it's a tough sectional, and we're easily the smallest team in there. But our girls know, it can't be an excuse. I listen to Coach Bum talk all the time about just going out and competing, and we got great girls and some great talent, so trying to win a sectional title.
Andy, what's farther ahead going into the season? Defense a little bit farther ahead, or your bats a little bit farther ahead? Pitching, where do you feel like you're at?
Honestly, I would say from where we were last year, we are, better in both aspects. We're going to have a good pitching staff this year. We lost Bianca Pongpue as a freshman last year. She has a freak ankle injury 5 games into the season, and if that doesn't happen, she's, I think, a top 3 player in the league as a freshman. So she comes back this year, back and healthy. She's going to give us some depth at the pitch position. We've got a freshman in Madeline Hopper who's probably, by the halfway point of the year, I see her getting a lot of innings for us. And then Katie Hillard comes back, and she threw 113 innings for us last year. So we're going to be about 3 deep in the pitching aspect. We're better in the field than what we were last year already, I think. And we got some really good speed, especially with some of these freshmen coming along.
You mentioned that, and that's one thing worth talking about for those that think baseball and then softball, that you don't have the same rules as far as pitch counts like you do in baseball. You don't need the 4 or 5 person rotation in softball, but boy, it sure is nice to have that depth, isn't it? So you're not throwing the same kid every inning of every game.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie got frustrated last year because she ends up throwing, every single game and every single inning by the end of the year. And it does. You see her for the 3rd time in a game, and we got nobody that we can throw in there. It almost becomes like batting practice, no matter who it is. You've seen them, you've seen their pitches. So, yeah, having 3 girls this year is going to be a blessing for us.
Talk a little bit. You mentioned Hilltop in the BBC. Until somebody dethrones them, they're the team to beat. Other teams in the conference, and then maybe some other teams that are on your schedule that are pretty solid that will hopefully, in your case, prepare you for the tournament.
Like you said, Hilltop's at the top. North Central's going to be the other team that we know they're going to be competitive. We split with them last year, 1-1. Finished 8-3 with 2 losses to Hilltop. But North Central's got a good pitching staff, and Joe does a really good job with them over there. Like I said, Pettysville gets better. They were young last year. Eden is going to be a little bit better. They had young pitching last year, so that's kind of where they struggled. We play some teams that are in the GMC. We got Fairview on the schedule. We got to play them once this year, and they come back as D3 state champions. So that's a good test for us. We go out, we play Wauseon, we play Edgerton. We play some good teams around this area, and trying to talk to these girls about, it's not just good enough to win our league games. That's all we had last year, and We need to be able to compete with some of these slightly bigger schools or some of these slightly more talented schools in the area.
Have you been able, like a day like today, were you able to get outside at all today?
We haven't gotten outside quite yet. Maybe this weekend a little bit. Saturday is going to be, beautiful for us, but we've got some of the best facilities in the area. So, the opportunity to practice on a turf field inside, you don't have to take ground balls, on a court or anything like that.
The days of getting
advantage.
stuff done inside are a lot better than at Montpelier in particular than even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, what you can do now when you are inside.
Yeah, we got 2 scrimmages this year, and we've got people who they want to come and scrimmage at our facilities because, we can pull the batting cages, we're on the turf. Girls get a little better feel when they're pitching, so that's a blessing. to have those facilities at your disposal.
You always hear about in a lot of sports, and this is kind of a blind question. Are there anything rule-wise in softball this year where officials talk about point of emphasis? Is there anything in softball that has been brought up?
I haven't seen anything. I just was looking actually through the new rules and stuff, but I haven't seen anything that's really new this year. There is something in there about what you have to wear now on the sidelines. I don't know how much of it's changing towards like baseball, but other than that, no.
Yeah. Boy, it's nice to hear, though, that you have 20 kids out. I mean, that's one of my big takeaways, I think, from this conversation is that you have that number of kids out because there are a lot of sports in a lot of whatever season it might be where you don't get to have a JV schedule just because of sheer numbers.
Yeah, and, we got 11 freshmen that came out this year. Like I said, that class it's got a lot of talent to it, and we were able to retain and even bring back a couple girls that had not played last year. I think they see, Montpelier as a whole has been very successful in the spring, and I think some of these kids are starting to see, I want to be part of, and it doesn't matter what it is. It might be boys or girls track who, they win, it seems like every year now. Baseball has been super successful, and now, they're seeing softball starting to turn a little bit, so I think they want to be part of something like that.
You got a couple assistants here. You want to give them shout-outs?
Yeah, absolutely. I got Eric Stantz here. He's huge for us. I brought him on, or I begged him last year 3 or 4 times, finally got him to come on, but he's got great experience coaching girls sports, which is, something I didn't have any experience in, so that was huge. And then I have Coach Hopper along with us, Brian Hopper, and his daughter's a freshman for us this year. She's got, really good idea of pitching and has gone through a lot of stuff like that. And then Coach Moore and Coach Rickenberg also are part of my staff, and 2 of the better softball players that's gone through Montpelier's history. Yeah. I think that's important for the girls to see. And then they also they're great coaches, and they do a great job with my pitching. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have those 2 to help with what we do in the pitching. So.
Can't let you go. Got to ask you a football question.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's the off season been? How's the transition been? Numbers, weight room, all that. What's participation been like?
Phenomenal start to our weightlifting program in the spring. We've got a group of about 5 to 8 guys who have been every day, 4 days a week since football ended. And now we're sitting at about 20 to 25 kids 3 days a week in the mornings. We had a great turnout for, our meeting that we had about 2-3 weeks ago. So very excited, and I think there's a lot of promise for what we got coming back next year. You know as well as I do, everybody that shows up to that meeting isn't going out for football. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's not, but what's a realistic number, you think, for kids out next year?
Our goal is to be around 35, and I think we're going to be somewhere between 35 to 40.
That's great.
I really do.
That's awesome. Scheduled opener, Northwest Ohio weather, but when are you supposed to start the softball season?
March 26th, doubleheader against Delta at Superior Complex.
Okay. You got to work on getting turf out there at that facility. You could play every game.
We're working on it. We're talking about it.
I like to hear that. You don't lose games.
Listen, we got the best AD in the area. He's on top of it. I'm not worried about it.
Yes. So we have him and the second best AD in the area in the house as well. Then coming up next,
absolutely,
Tony Gerig. Andy, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. Best of luck this season.
Thank you.
As the varsity softball coach at Montpelier, Andy Robinson, our first guest. Coming up next, Tony Gerig. We'll talk Hilltop baseball here on B-Rock Sports.
The Bryan Parks and Recreation Department would like to wish the Bryan Golden Bears good luck in tonight's game. The Bryan Parks and Rec offers a wide variety of classes for you during the entire year and an array of sporting events all year long. Check out what the Bryan Parks and Recreations Department has going on at bryanparksandrec.com or like them on Facebook. The Bryan Parks and Rec hopes to see you in one of the many parks that Bryan has to offer and enjoy the facilities. Questions about the classes or rental of one of their facilities, call 633-6030.
I want to talk to you for the next 30 seconds about the place to go for your next vehicle. Terry Hendricks Ford on Stryker Street in Archibald. Whether it's a new vehicle for purchase, a lease vehicle, or perhaps a pre-owned vehicle, Terry Hendricks Ford on Stryker Street in Archibald is the place to turn. They also have this fantastic service department as well. Service after the sale. Terry Hendricks Ford, serving all of your vehicle needs in Northwest Ohio. Go to terryhendricksford.com. Affordable homes do exist, and Misty King of Amerimaid Realty has a new one in Bryan that you'll want to check out. Located at 321 Newdale Drive, this 3-bedroom, 1-bath home offers a great location near the parks and pool. A large 2-car garage, spacious enclosed porch, semi-private deck out back, and a few updates including furnace and AC, new plumbing, renovated bathroom, and a newer roof. All of this for just $129,900. Need more details? Call Misty King of Amerimaid Realty at 419-633-4997 or visit AmeramaidHomes.com. That's Amerimaid Realty, your hometown real estate pro.
It's Thirsty Thursday at all the main stops in Northwest Ohio. What does that mean? It means that every Thursday, all day long, you will get any size fountain drink or any size coffee for only 79 cents. All day long, every Thursday, any size fountain drink, any size coffee or cappuccino. Stop in to your main stop and see everything they have to offer every day. Main stops, always there when you need us.
Here's your updated B-Rock 100.9 forecast. Overcast tonight with a chance for rain becoming mixed precipitation. Lows level off around 24. Winds out of the northwest, 8 to 15 miles per hour. High of 33 tomorrow. A mix of clouds and sun. Lows level off around 22 tomorrow night. Warmer Friday and Saturday with highs from the low 40s to the low 60s. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley. Currently, it's 50 degrees.
Welcome back out here to Sports Weekly, driven by Terry Hendricks Ford. Coming up the next couple of weeks, we have just one guest confirmed on the next 2 shows next week. Edgerton head baseball coach Mike Gillen will join us 2 weeks from tonight. Have you heard about this? I'm going to bring this up. You probably have. You're a guy that's in the know. Brayton Martin, Ayersville grad, has his own RPI. Have you heard about this?
I've heard of this.
For basketball. It's kind of like the Joe Lunardi, but Brayton has a life, and Joey Brackets has no life on ESPN. Yeah. No life whatsoever. He does this 12 months out of the year. But Brayton does this for high school basketball, and he says, I had that sheet doing D4 last night. The district coming out of Defiance is going to play the district out of Wapak, and he had, according to his analytics now, and he's a smart kid, Defiance was the number 7 Division IV district in the state, and Wapak has the number 1 district.
So as far as difficulty, 7th difficult versus.
I mean, it takes everything: strength of schedule, who you play, where you play them, who you beat. I mean, there's all kinds of these RPI factors.
You're getting down in the MAC country down there, so I get it.
Yeah, everybody feeding into Wapak is in the MAC.
Yeah.
So Brayton's going to be on to talk a little. I said, hey, you want to be on the show tomorrow night? He had a legit excuse, T-Money.
What's that?
Well, my wife's being induced into labor today. So I probably can't be on your show tomorrow night. So I said, well, I'll even give you an extra week to get acclimated. How about 2 weeks? So night before the state tournament.
Probably the right decision.
Yeah, I think that's a definite right decision. So, Tony, Gerig, dual hats. We're going to talk baseball. I'll talk a little athletics as well at Hilltop, but baseball in particular. You're underway, much like softball. It hadn't been all that long. Tell us I guess before we start this season, what you lost from last season, what you're trying to replace from Hilltop baseball.
We lost 5 seniors from last year. Connor Schlosser was our first-team All-League player and was an outstanding kid for us. He tore his ACL in football week 2 and still found a way to come back and play for us in the spring. Didn't know what we'd have from him and came out and just hit lights out for us and was an absolute great team leader and gave us a spark. And we really miss Connor, but We've got some kids coming up. I think we can help us out. But yeah, good group. But I think we got a really solid group coming back, plus some youth movement as well that's got some talent. So.
And pretty decent numbers too. You're going to be able to play both varsity and JV.
Yes, it's fantastic. It's been touch and go the last couple of years. In 2020, before it got shut down, we only had a dozen kids that played. In 2019, we made districts. We played that district semifinal game against Montpelier and almost had them beat, and with literally 10 kids in uniform. And then in just this past year, in December, we had 9 legit kids playing, and our kids knew that and went to work and recruited heavily in our own building and got some kids to come out and play.
More kid recruitment then?
Yeah, kid recruitment's the only thing that works. I can do all I can in the hallways to try to talk kids into playing, but coming from an adult, it's one thing. But when kids are recruiting friends that come out and play, then that always has more meaning behind it. So we got some kids to play, and we ended up having to start the season with 13, end up finishing with 11. But some of those kids that came out and play said, hey, I'll play, but they hadn't played since, Little League, 6th grade, 7th grade. So we literally, for a lot of our kids, were starting from scratch at trying to play varsity baseball. And so it was fun to get those kids ready to play. And, really we were more competitive than what our record ended up being. And it was quite a ride. But at the same time, it's just like you're just pulling teeth. We're trying to play varsity baseball games, and we're teaching literally the basic fundamentals of the game. And so now that we've got this year, we've got 18 kids in uniform, and a lot of these kids have been playing since their whole lives. And so there's a much better knowledge of the game coming up. They've got a better understanding. The skill, the fundamentals are there more, and we can do more already in practice than I think we did up through half of the way through the season last year. So very encouraging given what we've got so far in preseason.
Of the kids that you bring back, what does this group potentially do well?
They do a lot of things well, but I think the thing that is going to help us the most, and it's baseball and softball. It's what do you got on the mound, what do you got at the pitcher's plate? And we've got more pitching this year than I think we've had collectively in a long time. We've had some good arms over the years, but we never had much depth. And I think looking at what we've got back for this year, we've got, I think, 5 kids that can get on a varsity mound and compete at a high level. So that right there already gives you a chance. And that's why we made the districts a couple times there a few years ago, because we had solid number 1 pitching, but we didn't have a ton of solid number 2 and number 3.
Yeah.
And so your overall record gets dicey there when you're playing Archbold on a Monday, and then you got a league game on Tuesday. So I hope this year is going to be a year we can be a little more competitive in the non-conference, given the amount of arms we can throw on the mound.
What do you need to, and everybody needs to improve on stuff, especially now when you're just getting underway, but as you look at it on paper, what do you feel like, all right, we know that this is a weakness, we've got to get better?
We've got to get better defensively, of course. I mean, just playing catch and getting used to having a baseball in hand. A lot of our kids at a small school like Hilltop, they're asked to do multiple sports, and God bless those kids that do, because without them, we wouldn't have programs. And so a lot of these kids haven't touched a baseball since the last Acme game last summer. So trying to get back in the groove and getting arm strength built up. So defensively is always the key in baseball. If you can limit your errors, you've always got a shot. And when you're averaging 3 or 4 errors a game, forget it. Doesn't matter how good your pitcher is, you're not going to win. So that's what we're going to have to find our niche, to find a combination defensively that's going to be the most competitive. But the kids have been great. We actually got outside a couple times this week already, and we'll continue to do that. We don't have the facilities that some people do as far as indoor facilities. So when there's even a crack of getting outside, we try to take advantage of that. So,
who are some names to maybe keep an eye on and watch for this year, whether they're pitchers or hitters or whatever the case may be?
Sure. For us, I think it's going to start with our senior leadership and starts on the mound. So Ian Huffman is going to be our quote-unquote number 1. He's our guy we're going to give the ball to in the games we need to win, especially in conference. And Ian does a great job of trying to mix speeds. He's got a great off-speed pitch, commands the strike zone well, can get some swings and misses, which is huge in high school baseball. So when you get swings and misses, we got chances to win. Ian gives that to us. And then I look at from there, we've got a youth movement, really. We've got some sophomores and freshmen I think are going to step into some big roles. I think of Wade Wagner is a kid that's just going to be a sophomore. That was our best pitcher last summer because we didn't have Ian. Ian had thumb surgery because some not very smart head coach decided we needed to find an emergency catcher last year. In this first bullpen session of catching, he broke his thumb. And so he was able to make it through the season, bandaging it up, but he had to have surgery over the summer. So that cut us back last summer. And so Wade had to step in and be our guy, and has really done a fantastic job. He played football this past fall and has really gotten in the weight room. So I'm excited to see what Wade has. And then we've got a couple of freshmen coming up that really have competed well at their level, and some pretty good other competitions. So Devin Dempsey and Cameron Slosher stepping in there for pitching as freshmen, which will be tough to make that adjustment, but they've got the ability to give us a chance. And the other one that could be an ace in the hole for us is a kid by the name of Race Haynes, who did a fantastic job as a freshman, but had some shoulder issues and actually didn't play as an 8th grader. And so his arm is healthy now. So having those 5 kids able to go at any given time is not many small schools like Hilltop can say they've got 5 arms that can pitch.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge. I didn't get a chance. I should have asked Andy this to get his thoughts on it, because there's a tweak like the rest of the sports in the BBC scheduling. No double rounds.
Right.
So you're playing just a single game against an opponent, but still 2 a week.
2
right?
a week, yes.
So do you like going away from, let's say, playing Montpelier twice? Do you like playing the conference is going to be decided on 7 games?
I'm a little biased. I'm an AD and I'm the baseball guy. So, years ago when we got this schedule set up, truthfully told, I was one of the people that pushed for doing the season series, playing 2 games back-to-back in the same week. I thought it made it so that teams, to be a conference champion, you had to have more than one guy to pitch. The problem with that is that we live in Northwest Ohio, and the weather isn't great, if you haven't noticed, in March and April. So, how many series we actually legitimately played back-to-back on a Tuesday, Thursday? It happened once or twice, maybe if you're lucky. So, at the end of the day, I think it was a good theory. I think in a perfect world it would have been great. But I just think for scheduling purposes and trying to be what's best for the kids, I think this is probably the best way. It really is.
So what does the BBC in baseball look like this year coming back?
Well, the Montpeliers won the league 3 years in a row. And so when a team wins it 3 years in a row, you've got to give them their respect. Toby does a great job. He's a fantastic guy. Just ask him. They do a great job. But, they've lost a lot of the kids that carried them those last years. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. But I look around the league and I see the first team that comes to my mind is North Central. They've got a lot of talent coming back, and they're young, and they're very solid. Eden is also going to be right there. When you talk baseball, you've got to talk Eden in the BBC. They're always competitive. So those are probably the top 2 schools in there. We hope we can be right with them. We think we've got a chance to be competitive with them day in, day out. But those are probably the top 2. I think Pettysville's always a tough out. Paul Bishop does a fantastic job there. They've always got a competitive group, no matter what their numbers are. So it should be fun.
What's your out-of-conference schedule look like?
It's kind of a meat grinder. We start a tough week. We've got Ayersville the first week, Tenor the first week. We come back the second week with Archbold. We play.
There's that pitching depth tested right away.
It's going to
right?
get tested early. It's not an easy schedule. We're on the road a lot early in the season too. So I'm worried about that opening schedule, playing some really good teams. We play North Central that first week in a non-conference game, as well as Montpelier. So we've got a lot going on. I hope that we can make it through there and be competitive and keep some confidence going. But even if we don't win a lot of those games, I hope that our guys start to see the improvement and get themselves ready for the conference season, which in looking at the way the schedule's made up now, it gives us a chance to have some growing pains and it not be a league game that matters that first week of the season. So that's a big benefit of the new setup for sure. We get a chance to, if we don't look good early, we can keep building and get ready for conference. But we expect to be right there with a lot of those schools. We really do.
That athletic director at Hilltop did a great job of setting them up to challenge them right out of the bats, right?
Right, exactly.
That was the goal.
That's why he's the number 2 AD in the league, not number 1.
I had asked Andy this. I was reading through today. There are a couple of tweaks to whether what umpires are looking for on points of emphasis or changes to rules. Have you gone through them yet? Is there anything major in baseball that we need to be aware of?
I don't think there's anything major. There's a couple of things about how kids
And by the way,
signs.
let me just say this. The point of emphasis is gone by the end of week 1 or 2.
If it's
in
that
every
long.
sport,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they may say it down in Columbus and to a smaller level in the Northwest District, but, I mean, come on.
No, I read through it. The only thing that's just about how pitchers get their signs. A lot of the teams have those wristbands, and they do signs from the dugout instead of from the catcher for pitch selection. But there's nothing you're going to see in a game you're broadcasting that's going to be anything different.
You can throw your AD hat on right now. You know what's going on in the rest of spring sports. Are numbers really good across the board in both softball and track, or decent?
I think
Anyways,
track's not too bad. We had a BBC meeting today as ADs, and I think track numbers are okay. Softball and baseball is a little tight. Softball numbers in our league are down, I think, overall. Baseball numbers are pretty low. We're one of the highest with 18, as far as I know, at least in the BBC. So numbers are tight. It's a tough sell. I mean, we ask a lot of these kids. A lot of these kids are coming off playing football and basketball. Now we're asking them to commit to 2.5-hour practices in baseball and then play 5 games a week and commit a lot of time. So, baseball is not an easy sport either. I think it's one of the most difficult sports to play. It's just as far as the skill development that's required and the time and effort that it takes to be a really competitive baseball player. So I think numbers are what they are. Our enrollment is shrinking. It's a tough situation for us. But the kids we do have work hard, I think, and we try to stay positive with them and try to encourage them to be as involved as they can be. But it's difficult. Numbers are what they are.
And it's not just a Hilltop thing.
No, it's not.
It's other places as well when you're hearing about. I mean, there's what you can only do so much if you have 4 boys in a class or whatever it might be, a small number wise.
Yeah.
And there are some that it's happening. It's reality.
And unfortunately, we're not a whole lot farther behind those schools. I mean, the numbers came out. We're in the 50s for boys in the OHSA enrollment that they're going to use to set divisions, which we've never been in. So we're at the lowest number of boys and girls too, for that matter, enrollment in our school's history. So we're trying our best to do the best we can with the numbers that we have, and just trying to keep as many kids involved as possible.
Has anything changed? I thought maybe you're in the know as an AD and a baseball coach, but nothing on the district board website. Are the district sites staying the same? Will you go to Bryan?
As far as I know, that's still the same. Those have not been released yet, but I'd be shocked if we weren't in Bryan again.
And it's still, of course, for those that don't know, in a spring sport, if you're the higher seed, you're hosting.
Right.
So, which I thought for sure was going to happen in basketball this year. I thought last year we were going to see that, and that was going to be the reason, because our district is, if not the last, one of the last to still go to neutral sites. And I thought for sure last year when we did it in hoops, all right, there's a reason to keep it down.
Right. And I like the neutral site. I really do. I think it makes for a much better atmosphere, especially in hoops. It's such a better atmosphere when you've got a number of schools coming together in one location in a bigger gym.
Yeah, saw that just this last week. We miss anything else? Anything else in Hilltop that you want to make mention of, whether it be booster-wise coming up, baseball, anything coming up on the calendar?
No, just hoping that we stay healthy and keep the weather good. We got some fingers crossed that we may have a new facility being built up at Hilltop for a third gym, which would be outstanding for us to improve our facilities and give our kids a better chance to be successful.
That'd be awesome.
So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that gets finalized.
Now I'm going to be on the selfish question here. We're talking about facilities. We're getting closer to the press box out there, huh? Slowly but surely.
We're working on it. We've got some things
I love you,
going.
though, when we come over, the tent's up.
The tent's up, yeah.
The tent is up, and I'm appreciative.
You're not getting
of
a bird's eye view, but you're out of the elements.
I mean, and the older that I get doing these things, I'm soft. I'm just going to say that.
No argument there.
There's no doubt about it. Tony, thanks for coming over and being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Hope you have a great spring.
Yep.
Look forward to seeing you guys down the road. I can't believe we're saying that. It's March 2nd.
I know it.
Little ways before we play, but boom, it's going to be here in a heartbeat.
So, thanks, Andy, as always. And thank you for what you do for high school sports.
That Hilltop staple. Thanks to Andy Robinson for being on. Next week, we know one guest, Mike Gillen. I'll have at least one more, maybe 2 more lined up for next week for Sports Weekly, driven each and every week by Terry Hendricks Ford, JJ Wins, Amerimaid Realty, the main stops of Northwest Ohio, and the Bryan Parks and Recreation Department. More rock coming up here in just a couple of minutes on B-Rock.